damage, defense, sustain, and 1 bar? Like, what's going on? Hey guys, it's Dan, and welcome back to Unified Gaming. So, in this one, I'm going to share with you my magicka warden 1 bar PvP build for the current patch. This thing is insane. We have 30,000+ resistances, we have over 5,000 spell damage, fully buffed 30,000 penetration, loads of sustain, loads of stats. It has everything you need in a PvP build. And I've also gone through and used everything I know about PvP to give you the best skills for this playstyle. If you like what I do here and you want to just let me know, then do like, it tells YouTube, it tells me you want to see more of this stuff. And leave a comment. I'd love to know what you think of this build and this video format. And as always, if you haven't done so, make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss out on the future content. And a huge thanks to everyone over at Patreon who helps make these videos possible. If you want to support myself, there's details down below. So what are we doing for this build? We are a Dark Elf on this. Dark Elf gives us magicka and stamina, flame resistance, and weapon and spell damage. The advantage of this is we can run vampire with little drawbacks beyond sustain, so we're really tanky and we have great damage. If you don't want to be a Dark Elf, you could use Breton, you could use High Elf, you could even use Imperial, which is a really good option, or Argonian, so there's some great options there. Race-wise, it won't make or break this build if you are a different race. As with our attributes, we have 48 points in magicka and 16 in health. The idea is that we're trying to get around 28,000 magicka and about 28,000 health-ish before minor toughness. That means when we're buffed up with minor toughness, we have 30,000 plus health and 28,000 resource, so plenty of stuff to work with, plus a good amount of off-stat like stamina. For the Mundus Stone, I am using the Lover. This gives us physical and spell penetration, which means our penetration is at 9,700 always. If we then use Balorg, we use other skills and stuff, it goes higher and higher and higher, almost up to 30,000, which is just insane. For the consumables, I use Clockwork Citrus Fillet. This is very expensive, but is probably the best for this. If you don't have this food, there is purple food you can look at that does the same thing, health, magicka, and magicka recovery. So do look into it, but if you can't afford that, then try something like Sugar Skulls and change a few things around with the glyphs, which there will be options later on, so don't panic. I also have Tri-Stat Potions. They cover every basis, so that's our stamina, magicka, health. We'll own any one, pop a potion, good to go. If you do want to use more specialised potions, however, you can use something like Essence of Immovability, which are really good. They're just a bit expensive and I don't have much gold. You might notice on the top left I have an insane amount of money, but this is over on the PTS where I've recorded this part of the video to show it min-maxed, everything being fully gold to see what the ultimate version would look like. I don't have anywhere this much money, so if you want to support, there's details down below as I've said earlier. As for the skills, what are we doing over here? Well, you can see there's 5 skills. So this is using Oaken Soul. It's kind of an, you can't make a 1 bar build without Oaken Soul in all honesty. We're using Frost Reach as a spammable and an extra dot, which is nice. It also puts Chilled on them, which works really well with the Warden passives. We then have Deep Fissure, which is our burst skill, plus Major and Minor Breach, so loads of penetration, like 9,000 extra. We have Resolve and Vigor for a heal over time, plus Armour. We then have Polar Wind, which is a burst heal, plus another heal over time, which really helps with the healing power in this build. And we have Fetcher Infection, which can be an extra dot or a skill of choice, or a movement skill, which I would recommend for things like Cyrodiil or Imperial City. We then use Dawnbreaker of Smiting as our ultimate, which hits really hard, especially when we're fully buffed. You might notice our tooltips, they're pretty decent considering we have no CP on this. If I buff up with our Frost Reach, which we are using a Master Staff, we almost have an 8,000 tooltip, which is really high. Our Deep Fissure is 9,900 with a 13,700 follow-up, and our Dawnbreaker, when we are buffed, is 15k. If we use our ultimate too, we get even more damage because of Balorg, so our numbers go up really high. I use Polar Wind because it is an extra heal over time, which you need to have a bit more healing power, and so we do lack a stun, but with Dawnbreaker being up quite often, it does kind of fix that. I did mention that you can change Fetcher Infection for a skill of choice. So one of the advantages of this is you can swap this for a movement skill. Any movement skill is something that gives you movement speed and or snare immunity, ideally both. So Deceptive Predator falls into that category. It gives us Major Expedition. It also gives us Snare Immunity, and it's a great skill. If for some reason you don't have that though, or you just don't want to use it, you can go all the way down to Sigil Order and use Race Against Time. This does the same thing, it looks nice, but I would recommend using Deceptive Predator instead. If you don't want to use any of those and you want to go for a bit more damage, with being a vampire stage 3, we have access to Strike from the Shadows, which means when we use Mist Form, we get bonus damage. So using Elusive Mist as our movement skill will let us teleport around the battlefield, really helps us remove just projectiles coming in, which is great, and it gives us bonus damage. So this is a really good option to try for yourself. It does give you that kind of play as a sorcerer vibe, but you have the AoE nature of Deep Fissure and Dawnbreaker together, so it can be pretty cool. And if you want to do this, you can even change Frost Reach for an AoE skill like Elemental Ring or Impulse, which is down here, and use Pulsar. And then you have like an AoE version of this type of playstyle, which is fun, but I will keep it as it is. It is more effective that way round. Really quickly, why am I using an Ice Staff over a Lightning Staff? I get asked that quite often. If you go to Destruction Staff, you have a few cool passives down here. You have Penetrating Magic, Force, Ancient Knowledge, Destruction Expert. With using Elemental Force, you get higher status chances, which means you can apply Shield and Brittle as a result, which means you do bonus crit damage to the target. So this is a big advantage of using an Ice Staff. If you're a Warden, we can go into Winter's Embrace. You also get bonus damage if you use an Ice Staff equipped, so 12% bonus damage whilst using an Ice Staff, and that's to all damage sources. So poisons, skills, whether they're ice or not, will get increased by this, so this is really helpful. We also have extra just debuffs here, so increase the damage off your chilled status effect by 1084, which is really cool. So as we chill people, which this does it always, we get an extra dot for free. So again, really, really cool, just bonus damage. If we go down to our advanced species, we also get some pen and crit stuff down here. So the Ice Stuff, when you actually go through all of these passives, predominantly Winter's Embrace, just gives us more damage overall than a Lightning Staff. And this is really, really cool, because it means that we can really feel as a magical warden and just play the kind of that role play type thing, which I think is cool. The one thing I will say is, if you go to Destruction Staff, as you can see, this is on PTS with all the skills unlocked. I would recommend do not, just being clear, do not get Trifocus. This will kill your sustain and you will die if you have this on. So just take this off and never slot anything in here. There are so many times where I've used this and it just does not work in PvP. So if you are dying, check that you don't have this on, because the likelihood is that you are running out of resources because of this passive. So take it off. Now I'm going to go through the sets and stuff in just a moment. But if you do like what I'm doing here, then do leave a like. It tells YouTube and it tells me you want to see more of this and more just ESO content. And if you haven't done so, make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss out on the future content. And as always, a massive thanks to everyone on Patreon who helps support and make these videos possible. So what are we doing set-wise? Well, we are using a special weapon called the Master's Ice Staff. This comes from Dragonstar Arena and is phenomenal. We use double dot poisons. You can use the perfected one for even more damage, or you could just use the basic one, which you can get on normal. It is a bit of a grind, but this is incredibly good. If you don't have this, then you can change this for something like willpower, and you'll see in all the footage at the start, I deliberately not used the Master's one, just to show that this works even without the Master Staff. So everything you've seen at the start of the video and at the end does not use the Master Staff to show that you can do this without it. But if you have it, there is a big just boost of damage, so it's really worth farming if you can. I then use Balorg. Balorg, it gives us just really high penetration and damage when we use our ultimate, so this is a really great way to just give Warden that bit more oomph when it needs it. I then use Ethereal Ascension. This is a really interesting set because it gives you loads and loads and loads of defense, like almost 10k, so this is incredibly good. It does, however, mean that your sprints, your dodge, and your break free does cost more stamina. However, because things aren't that massively expensive in the first place, being 20% more stamina on, say, 300 stamina, for example, is not huge. Break 3 is around about 3,000 stamina, so 20% isn't a massive amount of extra stamina lost. So this is definitely worth it just for the mitigation. If you want to change the set though and use a set that has similar resistances, then use Mark of the Pariah, and this will give you the same kind of effect. You won't be as bulky all of the time, but you won't have the stam penalty. So that is an alternative if you wish. I then paired this with 2 trainee, so 1 necklace and 1 ring, and Oakensoul. As for the loadout, it's Master's Eye Staff using Sharpened, double dot poisons. I then use Balorg, and I use Ethereal Ascension on the body. I go with 4 Impenetrable and 3 Well Fitted. You can put that in any order you wish. And I'd recommend going with 1 medium head, heavy chest, light shoulders, light waist, light hands, medium legs, and light feet. You can move this around to maximize resistances a tiny bit, but this is how things dropped on my live server, so I just copied it literally piece for piece. And on the jewelry, it's all infused. And I've gone with weapon and spell damage. And then I've gone with try regen. The reason I've gone with try regen is because 2 try regen glyphs gives you effectively 1 magicka and 1 stamina glyph, plus 3 health recovery, so it's just 3 stats. But if you find sustain a bit hard on this, you can change these to be both magic recovery, which will push your regen up to like 2,000, which is incredibly high. And if you do need even more sustain, you can change that 3rd glyph to be magic recovery as well and have even more sustain, like 2,300 roughly at all times. And that's before potions. So there is no reason why sustain should be a problem on this build. The last thing I get asked as well is about champion points. Just a quick TLDR. I use this predominantly in Battlegrounds, as you can see in the footage, and I don't use this massively in Cyrodiil or Imperial City. But if you did want to take it into those places where you have CP, I would recommend using these ones. In Warfare, you want to go to Stave and Death, and you want to go for Ironclad. This will make you more tanky, and you won't die as quick. You then want to move to the top right of the tree and go with Deadly Aim. This increases our single target damage, which will help with our Ice Reach, our spammable. You want to go with Master at Arms for direct damage, which will help with almost all of our skills. And then the 4th one, you can go with the Fighting Finesse for more crit damage, or even something like Ocular Overload for the just chance of getting an AoE bomb for free. As for the red ones, I would recommend going to Wind Chaser, getting Celerity, movement speed. There is quite a lot of sorcerers this current patch, so going up through the centre, past Shield Master, you get Bastion. This increases your shields and the damage you do to enemy shields, so this is really good. If you go to Survivor's Spite, you can then get Pain's Refuge, which makes you just really tanky. You can also get Survival Instincts for more stamina and just magicka sustain, so really, really useful. And then you have a kind of a choice where you can either go Slippery for just free roll, dodge and break free, or Expert Evasion. Kind of pick one of your choice there. As for the green ones honestly are up to you. I'd always recommend getting Steed's Blessing. Just this makes you move faster out of combat and helps you get back into it quickly. Make sure that you do get Breakfall, and then for the other ones you could go with just getting as much movement speed as you can, or if you're trying to save gold like I am on the live server, because I am a bit low, getting things like the potion ones down here. Liquid Efficiency is very good, and also Rationer. These make food last longer, these make potions be potentially free, so this can save you a lot of money. But that's the CP, guys. And that's the build on the whole. It has everything you need. It's got really high defense, really high damage, great sustain, literally everything you would need in a PvP build, straight out the gate. It does take a bit of time to farm and set up, but it is well worth doing and it's a real blast to play. The big thing I will say, however, is that it has the same woes as any magicka warden in that you can get people low quickly, but you can find it hard to finish people off, and this is more of a support class and build, which just warden is on the whole. But I'm going to buff up quickly just to show you what it looks like fully buffed so you can see the lovely stat page, because it is pretty glorious. And as always, if you get any questions about the build or stuff, just let me know in the comments below or join the Discord. There is details in the description of this video. Fully buffed up, this is what we look like. So that's our stat page fully buffed up. It is pretty tasty. With our potion, it goes even higher with like 1900 regen. So we are very, very, very tasty on this build. But I'm going to call it there, guys. So I'm going to say a massive thanks to everyone that has watched, and a huge thanks to all the people on Patreon who help make these videos possible. I'll catch you in the next one. So take care, guys. Thanks for watching, and bye.